All right, guys, this is Coach Clape here with highschoolwrestlingmatches.com. We're launching our first Utah High School Wrestling broadcast today. I got two guests on the line today. Brian Priest is actually going to run with this podcast as time goes on, and Chad Blevins. Many of you know him from Mountain View High School. He's been the head coach there for 8 years now. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit with Chad about his new role as the UHSAA Director of Wrestling. He's taken on that job starting this year, so I'll let him tell us more about that in a minute. But I want to explain real quick about what this podcast is and what highschoolwrestlingmatches.com is. Highschoolwrestlingmatches.com started out a few years ago where I just thought it'd be cool to archive wrestling matches so kids could go back and watch their high school matches.
Chad, do you hear me?
No, it started going all fuzzy and muffled. I hear you now, but it was like a robot was talking. Are you getting that? Hello?
I think we might have lost Kurt.
That was. Did you hear? Do you hear like ruffled sounds as well, Brian?
Yes, I kind of heard some weird kind of keyboard-like tones.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not hearing voices yet in my head. That was strange.
You guys can't hear me? Anyways, so we'll get to them in just a minute, but I muted them for the time being. And what we're going to do in every podcast that we do, we're starting the Utah one today and the Illinois podcast tonight. But in every podcast that we do, we try to give you something of value. So if you'll stick around till the end, we'll have a link where you can pick up a free gift from us just for watching this podcast. So I'm going to unmute Brian here and turn the time over to Brian. Brian,
Well,
you're there?
am I unmuted?
You are unmuted. Let me unmute Chad.
Stop to mute me, because you know me. I am a man who likes to express himself. And I got a real special guest, 'cause Chad is a real special person in my heart. Actually, his twin brother, he has a guy that looks exactly like him pretty much, came stumbling into my wrestling room about 15 years ago, saying he wanted to help coach or whatnot. He was dating the sister of one of my wrestlers, and he said, "Man, I got a twin brother. His name is Chad, and he might be interested in helping me out." So Chad and Travis were my assistant coaches for several years.
And Chad, one second, Brian. Chad, you're muted on your end. Can you unmute that? Is your microphone red?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, so I don't know how far I got, but Travis, his twin brother, first contacted me about helping out with the program, and then Chad joined us, and he was a great assistant coach for me for several years. And when the Mountain View program job opened up, he ran with that. And I've been very, very proud with what he's done with the Mountain View program and the leadership role that Chad's taken with the Utah Wrestling Coaches Association, and just being very involved. And now he's going to be the director of wrestling for the Utah High School Activities Association, basically replacing David Vandevegate. And so my question to you, Chad, right off the bat is, what's your goals with this new position?
Jeez. Okay, now can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I could hear you.
Okay, I didn't press anything. It suddenly went mute. Okay, we're good now.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Yes. What's your goals here with your new job?
Well, my biggest goals are to hopefully represent the voice of the coaches in Utah wrestling, and also represent the voice and concerns of the administration throughout the state. The great background that I have now is being the Coaches Association president for 2 years and representing that coaches vote and working with the state representative. I have a very good understanding of what the coaches are wanting. And we have some of the finest coaches in Utah. Right when I took the job at the end of March, beginning of April, things were already very busy because these coaches have great ideas and concerns to simply improve wrestling throughout Utah. So hopefully bridge that gap and get the alignment in sync between the coaches and all of the administrators throughout Utah in wrestling.
Well, I mean, last year the 4A and the 5A implemented the state dual championships, and I thought there were some really good aspects of it, and I thought there were some things that definitely need of improvement. But maybe talk a little bit about the state duels. I know there were some concerns that some of the teams didn't really buy in, and they sent a lot of JV wrestlers and didn't take the competition as seriously as many of us had hoped. And there was maybe some concerns about the two different sites, you know, and maybe bringing this under one site. So what's going to happen with the 4A and 5A duels?
The dual state championship was quite the hot topic right when I got the job. The bottom line is most of the feedback we got was success. Most administrators and coaches thought it was a good experience. Overall, it helps to promote a well-rounded team in comparison to just scoring the individuals at a state tournament. It's a team competition. The couple concerns were, number one, having the event at the Maverick Center, the semis and finals, costed the state a significant amount of money. It was kind of the state to foot the bill, but we have to make that change because it did not fund itself. The second concern is there were some teams that, as you said, might not have put their best team forward and weren't completely excited about the idea. We have a couple of proposals in the works. In fact, the executive committee meeting is this Friday. I'll be at the UHSAA at 1 o'clock, and the first proposal I'll be bringing to the table is the number one choice of the coaches. We survey monkeyed the coaches. This had basically an 80% plus success response rate, and that is to host the 4A and 5A state duels at the Salt Lake Community Center. It would be a 16-man bracket, just like the other sports. It would be place rounds after the first round of single elimination. It would be a one-day event, which decreases traveling time. Our first choice is Slick. Could be pretty exciting. We can host both 4A and 5A there. Unfortunately, we will not know until the very beginning of August if that calendaring works with Slick. They've expressed that they love the idea, but they can't give us a guarantee until their minor league basketball situation calendar is finalized at the beginning of August. The second choice of the coaches, based upon the Survey Monkey, is to have a 16-man bracket at a 4A school, do the 4A state championship there in one day, and a 16-man bracket at a 5A school, do that in one day as well. So the bottom line is there were a couple schools that have their concerns and aren't excited about the dual state tournament, but with these Survey Monkeys, it proved that most schools are on board, and almost all the schools would like to have a 16-man bracket. Currently, the dual state tournament is scheduled to be at Jordan High. It's scheduled to be a one-day event and a 12-man bracket for 4A and 5A. That basically became a default proposal and got passed really quick in April to preserve something. We're hoping to get these two proposals passed so that it's more in sync with the coaches' desires, and I think the administration will buy into the realistic, way those can work out.
So we have a default plan of a 12-team tournament if that's the worst case scenario, I guess.
Correct. That's the worst. That according to the coaches, that's the worst case scenario. The dual state tournament will still happen, but that is hopefully the third default at this point. The executive committee will hopefully pass those first two options, which is what the coaches desire at this point.
And I'm going to apologize in advance when I have to cough. I'm going to fight the old bronchitis bug in the summer of all things. So hopefully I won't start coughing up a lung. But now, how about the calendaring for the individual or the traditional state tournament? I heard, we were talking a little bit before in the spring about some issues with that, and what's going to be going on there?
So basically, there's two things that have come up with the calendaring. Number one, the coaches and administrators would love to see 4A and 5A's events on Friday, Saturday combinations as opposed to Wednesday, Thursday combinations, so kids and coaches aren't taken away from as many academic school days. With the facilities and such, it was not plausible and did not work to change the individual state tournament from February 8th and 9th to any of the other February weekends. Currently, in February of 2018, the state and I will be working to schedule the 4A and 5A state championships the third weekend of June, which would be the weekend following the small schools. Keep in mind, we're going to a 6A division. That's what it looks like. So we're talking about basically 5A and 6A the third week of February, and most likely 1A through 4A the second weekend of February. Well, since we could not get that moved to a Friday, Saturday this year, Brandon Ripplinger of Viewmont made an awesome proposal for divisionals. He basically said, can we run divisionals in a 2-day format, allowing for 4A to wrestle in the evening one day and 5A wrestling in the evening on another day at the Legacy Event Center. That actually passed with nearly a 70% approval from coaches, moving away from the current divisional format. That will also be...
I guess the Legacy Center.
Legacy Event Center. So that's one other item that I will be proposing to the executive committee. Can we move divisionals to the Legacy Event Center, centralize everybody, and basically keep kids in the classroom one more day this year?
Hey, let me chime in for a second. I have a question. Chad, you can hear me, right, Chad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does the Legacy Event Center, that sounds awesome to me, but can that sit everybody? Fans and everything?
Basically what we've looked at, since 4A and 5A will not be at the same time, it's looking like it will be able to hold everybody. If there's overlap, it wouldn't. So it'll be tight, but it looks like it should work out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a doable plan. I mean, maybe not the greatest facility in the world, but you got to work with the administrators, right? So you kind of talked a little bit about working with the coaches. What are the administrators' concerns? What do they come to you with? What's their concerns about wrestling and all these things that wrestling coaches want to do?
Well, it was interesting. The UHSAA hired me for this part-time job the morning of the executive meeting in April. So they said you have the job. 5 minutes later, I walked into the executive committee meeting. And when we got to the topic of wrestling, I was doing my best to simply listen to the administrators and then take that feedback back to the coaches. Their number one concern is missed school time at this point. Wrestling already, causes us to miss a lot of Fridays because of 2-day tournaments. If there are ways that we can avoid post-season tournaments away from more academic days, they will be very happy. So I think our plan for 2017-2018 will eliminate several school days missed, and the administration will be happy with that. The other concern with the administrators is, we just added a postseason tournament, which I am very much in favor of, the dual state championship. I hope it goes on forever. Well, again, finances was a little bit of concern. The other concern was now we're missing more school time. So we're hoping that the slick option works. It's one day. It is sacrificing a little school time, but as we move these state tournaments to Friday, Saturday, I think that the administrators will not be concerned anymore about missing school time.
Let me ask you a little bit now. When are we going? We're going to 6 classifications, not this next year, but the year after. Is that correct?
That's what it's looking like. 2017, 2018. Yes.
So the state duels is going to be 4A, 5A, and 6A, or is it just going to be 5A and 6A at that point?
That hasn't been ironed out, but when you look at the pre-alignment plans, it looks like 4A, most of 4A will become 5A, most of 5A will become 6A. So I think when we look at the smaller schools, we're looking at 1 through 4A.
Okay.
I think we look at big schools, we're looking at 5A through 6A. That's my best guesstimation at this time. Now, On that note, I'm hoping that Barry Smith, our new Utah Coaches Association president, is sending me some input on the smaller schools, some of their desires. They're looking at doing dual state tournaments. They're watching 4A and 5A closely, and Barry Smith of North Sevier is starting to become a great sounding board for these smaller schools. So hopefully we take some of their issues to the executive committee this Friday as well.
Okay, sounds good. Now, changing gears a little bit, I see some really good things going on in Utah high school wrestling, and I see some things that are concerning. It's sort of like, to me, it's like America. We have the haves and the have-nots, and I'm beginning to see money kind of playing a big part in athletic program success and even the success in wrestling. You know, I just looked at the All School Sports Awards, and it seems like the affluent schools are at the top, and Curtis and we work at schools that are less affluent, and having some issues there. And so quite frankly, there's some things that are concerning to me. But also at the same time, I think there's a lot of exciting, good things going on. So I'm kind of curious to see what your take is on things, Chad.
Well, I think you're bringing up a good point. Looking at Utah wrestling, you can look at it through many different lenses. The first thing on a positive note that's happened with Utah wrestling is Utah wrestling as a whole, especially with Utah Wrestling Utah, has grown dramatically. Our freestyle program under UHSAA Wrestling has, I believed, helped just about every program in the state. Now, that could be to a minor extent or to a major extent, but you've got some fantastic wrestlers from nearly every program that are participating in UHSAA Wrestling. And some of those wrestlers are going to Fargo and national tournaments because of our success with UHSAA Wrestling. I also think that participation numbers have been pretty strong in wrestling overall. I do have a little bit of a concern, as you've mentioned. Some of our programs that are trying to build, some of the struggling programs, how do we get them to increase their numbers? How can we help them, UHSAA Wrestling as well, build their program numbers? How do we get more of their kids to participate in freestyle wrestling in the spring, which can translate to higher numbers? So I think Utah wrestling has grown over the last 10 years. It's been successful at the national levels overall. But I understand what you're saying. I think a lot of it, and we're going to touch upon that later, with the building programs, is finding 3 to 4 men in the community to build a program, and that'll be part of my message. I think about anywhere a program can be built, if you have 3 to 4 strong, it could be women as well, 3 to strong leaders committed to building that entire program.
And I don't know.
Oh, sorry, what was that? Can you hear me, Brian?
Yes, I can't see Curtis, so it looked like he was about ready to talk, but I just wanted Curtis's perspective. He coaches at Granger High School.
Yeah.
A very tough, kind of tough neighborhood, let's be honest, and also, a less affluent situation, but a school that's had some tradition in the past.
And he's built Kurt's one of our examples that's built a program, and Kurt is building a program. I think that'd be good to hear his insights on what he's done well to build this program so far.
Yeah, our biggest challenge is mat time. When you're at a school that has, most of the kids come from less income than some of the other schools, and I think that's what you're getting at. The biggest challenge is mat time. Just paying for a freestyle tournament, where it's $12 per style, $24 for the weekend if they do both styles or 3 styles. That's the biggest challenge for my kids. For the regular season, we have school funding and federal funding. We're fine there, and we get a lot of mat time there. So, am I answering a question? You're just giving a comment.
Doing great, yeah.
But anyways,
Hello.
So that's our biggest challenge is
I can't hear
getting the kids the mat time.
we might have lost Chad, but my perspective on this a little bit too is like I think Chad hit upon a point where maybe some of these programs need mentors and strong leaders.
Sorry, I can't.
Cool. I hear you now, Chad.
Chad, everybody else is working. I don't know why you can't hear us, but we can hear you.
We can hear you fine, Chad.
Or we could hear you.
Now not. But so it's something that concerns me a little bit. I just see, we got some programs that are really thriving, and we have some outstanding individuals at a national level. But then we have some programs that are really struggling, and I think there's schools that are on the verge of dropping their programs. So,
Chad, if you need to log out and log back in.
I don't know if Chad hears us at all.
Here, I'm going to send him a message.
Yeah, so the old podcast, very first time, but it's a neat opportunity. I think, Kurt, too, your webpage, the highschoolwrestlingmatches.com, is going to be a great resource for a lot of programs. That's a good way for coaches to access matches and techniques, videos, and things like that. I'm very excited with what you're doing there. I think that'll provide a good library that's accessible, not just to the most affluent that could go to wrestling camps and stuff. You're bringing this stuff to people that maybe don't have the means to go to travel around the country and so forth. So I think what you're doing with your web page, Kurt, is really gonna help a lot of people.
Well, thanks, Brian. So Chad's back on. Chad.
Okay, I'm back on.
Okay, so Chad's back on. Since we got onto the topic of highschoolwrestlingmatches.com, let me touch on a couple things of that, and then we'll go back to Chad and we'll wrap up the show with Chad giving us 3 pointers for building a wrestling program, because Brian mentioned there's a lot of programs thriving, but there's a lot that are building. I would put my program in the group of building, but I would definitely put us above just starting out, because I've had a few years there now. We're definitely not the bottom. We're not just starting out, but we're still building for sure. And I think everybody, to a degree or another, unless you're Pleasant Grove, I think you're always building, And so we'll turn the time over to Chad at the end to wrap up with that. But let me just point something out real quick with highschoolwrestlingmatches.com. I'm going to share my screen for a second for this. And so every time we do one of these podcasts, hold on.
Hey, while you're finding that, Kurt, will this be archived for people to listen to later?
Yes, this will all be archived for sure.
Just on the website, highschoolwrestlingmatches.com.
And there's also a YouTube channel, and I'll post the link on Facebook and everything. There's a number of ways to find it for sure.
I think you're doing a great service for wrestling, and I think, like I said, this web page of yours could be a real valuable asset to a lot of coaches and
we need to get it linked. We need to get it linked to WrestleUtah.com.
Okay, we'll do for sure. So let me just show you around this real quick. This will take about 1 minute, and then we'll turn the time over to Chad to talk about building the program. The reason you see a knife on the screen is because we do have sponsors for this thing, and one of our sponsors gives out this cool little knife that I thought you guys might think was cool. It's a credit card knife. Anyways, if any of you want that, it folds up into a credit card, goes in your wallet, and it's a hunting, fishing knife, whatever you want to use it for.
Cool.
And you can pick that up for free. To get that, you just go to highschoolwrestlingmatches.com/Brian recommends. I did that for you since you're hosting the show, Brian. highschoolwrestlingmatches.com/Brian recommends, and the only cost is the shipping. And then if you go to highschoolwrestlingmatches.com, this isn't just for Utah. I've archived mostly Utah matches because that's where I'm at, but I've archived about 8,000 or 9,000 high school wrestling matches from the last maybe 10 years. and you can find them here organized in teams by state, and so this will grow. This area where you can watch matches, this will grow. And so but I'm to the point now it's not worth my time to keep archiving them by hand. So we're looking for people that want to post their team matches on here. And the value of doing that is one, a lot of teams will post their matches on Huddle. Well, there's a cost associated with that. We host everything on YouTube, so there's no cost associated with that, and every kid knows how to use YouTube, so it's easy for them to find their matches. We host them on YouTube, and then we put links to them here on the webpage, so you could. The idea is eventually you'll be able to come on here, go to your state, Utah, click on teams, and then find your high school you wrestled at. See if we have an example here. Let's try Alta. Choose the years you wrestled and find matches for that team. For that to happen, though, coaches and parents will have to archive their own matches. So just send me an email, kurt@highschoolwrestlingmatches.com, if you are interested in doing that, in posting some of your high school wrestling matches and sharing them that way. The other value.
That email, Kurt.
The email again is Kurt with a C, C-U-R-T, @highschoolwrestlingmatches.com. And the other value of doing that, besides giving your kids a place where they can watch their matches, is that if you choose to, you can turn on monetization on YouTube and create a stream over the years of income into your program. And it's not a lot of income because most of your matches won't get a lot of views, but you typically will get between $1 and $3 for every 1,000 views you get on your YouTube channel. So you get enough matches on there, you could get where you're getting a couple $100 every year just from people watching your matches. So that's the value of doing that. If you're interested in participating in that, send me an email at Kurt with a C, C-U-R-T, @highschoolwrestlingmatches.com. And then the other thing we're adding to this now is an email where you can get a daily technique video, or it's not always technique videos, sometimes it's these podcasts, but if you go put your email in on the daily dose, I say that a daily dose of wrestling keeps the losses away. So if you go get a daily dose of wrestling from this email, we'll send you a free email every day with a wrestling video, and that's some cool stuff we got going on there. But yeah, I'll turn the time back over to you, Brian.
Well, I tell you, this is, like I said, and totally unsolicited for me, in the matter that, I wasn't really involved with the creation of the web page, but I just think it's just awesome. I think there's just a lot of great tools for parents, for wrestlers, for coaches. Basically, you're taking wrestling, and making it more available. You're taking it out to the 21st century, and I think it's great, and to have these podcasts and kind of talk to a great mind like a Chad Blevins. Now you mentioned before, Kurt, you wanted to ask Chad.
Yeah, Chad.
That's a great guy to ask.
Are you? Can we hear you, Chad? I can see.
I can hear you. I'm ready.
Okay, cool. All right, Chad.
What are the top 3 things?
Top 3 things
to build a program.
Number one, to build a program, and I want to preface this by saying, Mountain View already had a solid program when I got wrestlers. I think that the difference is, hopefully, I've been helped to build the numbers. My second year assistant teen kids, and then now we're averaging finishing. Yes.
Chad, let's back up. I don't know if your internet's bad,
am I out?
But you keep cutting out. We can still hear. We can still hear you, Chad. So we're good. So the first thing is building numbers, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Well, hold on. So I was just gonna say, the first thing is building the numbers by loving the kids and loving the sport. If you're happy and you're healthy and you're enjoying the kids and you're enjoying the sport, you will build numbers.
Now, can I interfere here with one thing?
Sure.
I think you said something, because a lot of coaches love the sport, but to me they lack the loving of the kids.
That can happen.
You've got to love the kids more, or definitely as much or more than you love the sport.
That was probably the biggest thing I took from Brian. When I was coaching for Brian at Provo, those 4 years, it's like I never saw him without his arm around one kid. He loved the kids, and that goes so far. Did we lose Brian there, Kurt?
No, we're good. He's just listening.
Number 2 is enjoy the building process, because often it takes a while and it can be a struggle. I look at one of the best coaches in the state. His name is Alex Nichols, and he's coaching Timpanogos. Alex assisted me for several years. He's happy. He's enjoying the building process. He knows it's going to take a while with Timpanogos High. I'm so impressed with his work ethic and patience.
He's bringing in camp, isn't he?
Yeah, he's bringing in some great summer camps. He had Jordan Burroughs last year. He's got Logan Stieber this year. He's got several good clinicians every summer. The last thing, and it's going to touch upon the financial barriers sometimes we face. So Granger's a perfect example, right, Kurt, of a lot of some financial barriers. Well, when I started the program at Mountain View, my first year, I didn't do anything about it. I just kind of watched. And that was, we only had 1 or 2 kids wrestling in the off season each season. And I didn't do much about it. And I realized there's got to be some way to get these guys participating. And we've got to be able to work through this cost barrier. In the Alpine School District, we're the lowest economic school. Not that we're, dirt poor, but we definitely have our challenges economically. So what I did is I worked with UHSAA Wrestling, and we started hosting a spring tournament. So that tournament pays for every tournament my wrestlers participated. The only thing the wrestlers have to figure out is their $40 UHSAA card. And this has been the busiest part for me as a coach, is every single tournament I register them with my high school visa, and that money gets charged and is funded by the money we make by running a March tournament. If I wouldn't have done that, I don't know if we really could have got kids to doing freestyle, because we had a lot with that financial barrier. The other thing it did, not just the financial barrier, it took away the excuse. It's Coach Blevins said, I'm paying for you to wrestle in these tournaments. So it's, what do they say? And so we've had really good freestyle numbers over the last 6-7 years, and that has helped the program a lot. So those are the 3 things. Love the kids, love the sport, enjoy the building process, find a way to help your wrestlers if you're in areas like me or where you don't have kids that need help. Find a way to make it financially reasonable to where they have to compete in the spring. And then go take them to Vegas every summer for wrestling tournament. We've done that for 7 years, and that only costs them about $60 because the hotels are so cheap, and the team fee for the big dual tournament we go to is only $350. So financially, get a way to get your kids on the mat. That's my advice. And thank you, Kurt. This is an incredible program. I'd like to get all the Utah wrestling coaches on here for a webinar, even if it's just hearing me give the announcements for the executive committee meeting. It'll help you and me. It'll save me 25 phone calls, and it'll help us get them on this website for a central communicative link. So thanks,
let's
Kurt.
do that. Just let me know when you want to do that, and I'll set it up, and you send out the email.
I just add one thing here to what Chad said about building a program, which he does very, very well, and get some great help. I think you need to have 4 or 5 good quality coaches in your room.
I almost forgot about that, Brian. You can't do it by yourself. You got to have 3 or 4 guys helping you.
A lot of people try to do it by themselves, or maybe they have one other guy. But I think if you have a program with lots of numbers and lots of personalities, when you have higher quality coaches and several of them, you can't help for a kid to find a coach that they can relate with, that they can communicate with, and so forth. And so that's why I was not afraid to have a Chad Blevins in my room, or the people I had, because not only did they know wrestling, but I knew if I was having a hard time getting through to a young man, that they could, and that to me makes a big difference. So I just wanted to throw that in. And something I've seen Chad do well. I think he has a wonderful staff.
Thanks, Brian.
Cool. All right, Brian. Thanks for the first show. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think we're going to be smoothing this up, and I'm excited for this, Kurt. I'm excited to be a part of this whole thing.
All right, sounds good. All right, that's it for this podcast. This is the first ever that I'm aware of Utah High School Wrestling podcast, and we'll be back with more in the near future. This one will be posted on our Facebook page, High School Wrestling Matches. Just search it, and you'll find it'll be the first thing to pop up. It'll also be posted on our website, highschoolwrestlingmatches.com, and I'll give a link to Chad, and Chad can email that out to everybody. So thanks for your time, and we will talk next time.